What's up, everyone? It's your favorite marketer and podcast host. My name is Prithvi Madhukar. I am the author of Zero to Four Figures, a marketing strategy consultant, and a digital entrepreneur. Few of the roles that I do take on, I'm a podcaster, YouTuber, Etsy shop owner, and a Skillshare teacher. All of the links are in the description box below if you would like to check it out. On this podcast, I shuffle between giving solo podcast episodes and bringing in experts to give you actionable steps on various marketing, business, and mindset strategies to help you grow the business you love. Today, I have one such expert with me, Per Sjofors. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, absolutely. Prit, it's a pleasure to be on the show, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. I hope it's going to be valuable for your audience and also maybe even entertaining.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. I think it's always a good combination to be entertaining at the same time, without compromising on the knowledge that is being distributed. Yeah. So that's a good way to go. Per, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What is it that you do? How did you get started on your entrepreneurial journey? And where are you right now?
Well, let's start with the very last thing. I'm physically in Los Angeles, but I mean, my story is this, that I have an undergrad in electronics and an MBA, and I was working for this tech company, and the CEO of the tech company always wanted me to get into sales, and I said, no, I'm a techie, and long story very short, and this was back in my native Sweden. Long story very short, we eventually, he and I, well, I with his money, to be honest, started a company in Zurich in Switzerland to really be a rep organization to represent mostly American-made electronics over the European market, and this was electronics for B2B applications. And that, I'll tell you, was a challenge because I've never started a company before. I've never been a CEO before. I've never developed what do you call it, an international business, and it was done in a country where I didn't, and I moved country, and I didn't know the language. So honestly, I was scared shitless. But I mean, you learn how to learn very quickly, right? And it took me a couple of years, but eventually we were a multi-million-dollar company, of course. And I then was bought over by one of my main competitors, which was a Japanese company, and I ran that company's European subsidiary out of London, and that was also successful. I quadrupled sales over a 3-year period. I was eventually invited to move to Japan and run their export division, which possibly could have been okay, but the export division was located out in the boonies, where the factory was, not in Tokyo. So that didn't happen. And after a few years with that company, I was recruited here to the US to set up a division for a fairly large public company. And I took that up to about 75 million over a 2-year period. And I was very successful in my business, but the company around me died. And in fact, I had negotiated to sell my division to a Fortune 500 company, and the only thing that was missing was the CEO's signature on the contract of the buyer, and then of course he got kicked out. So, and after that journey, I ran another 4 companies, a little smaller, but typically grew them from, nothing or almost nothing to 20, 25, 30 million, that kind of range. In all these instances, we did experiments with pricing, only because I was sort of interested in the topic. And some of those experiments were very, very successful. Like next quarter revenues were up 25% or so. Others were complete duds. And what I had learned in business school and could read about pricing was so academic and theoretical that it didn't help us in any way to understand why some of those experiments worked. So 15 years ago, I decided I was too old and too opinionated to be a hired gun. And I set up my own shop, and I decided to develop a process to make every pricing experiment a success. And, and that's what we do. I was called the Price Whisperer so many times that I eventually decided to adopt the moniker. It's not something I invented myself. And I have about 750 happy customers, and many of them doubled in size thanks to our work. So there's some outliers, companies who gone up 5 times or 10 times in size as a result of our work, but 2-3 times is typical. And this is because when you price in such a way that you don't leave money on the table anymore, you get additional resource for market development, for product development, and for marketing, and even hiring the best people, right? And that eventually drive enormous results, from a business point of view.
It's an incredible journey. I feel that you've traveled all over the world, and and you've come now to Los Angeles, and you are the Price Whisperer. That's absolutely such a beautiful story, and that's really why I like listening to stories like this. And it's amazing how you've managed to change the way people look at pricing and help them with their revenue as well. What do you think is one of the most challenging things that companies face these days when it comes to pricing?
Well, there's 3 top mistakes when it comes to pricing, and maybe I should say 4. And the very first one is the most important one, and that is that just ignoring pricing. I mean, the not having the insights of how important pricing is to the resulting business results. And and let me illustrate that. If you look at the end result for any company, the profit comes from only 3 variables. It's the total cost of the operation, it's the total sales volume of whatever the company is selling, and it's the price of what you're selling. And profits drive every company. If you don't have profits, eventually your company will die, right? And people say, well, but we have investors, okay, well, if you don't have profits, eventually the investors won't support you anymore. And if it's your own company, it's your bank account that is being depleted. So profits are absolutely crucial. So of these 3 variables, if you just do a thought experiment and consider if you change one of or each of those 1%, how does it affect profitability? And for the average company, and of course no company is average, but for the average company, if you can increase your sales volume with 1%, profit goes up with 3.5%. If, on the other hand, you can reduce your cost with 1%, profit goes up with 5.5%, again, for the average company. But if you can increase your price or decrease your discounting with 1%, profit goes up with 11.3%. And I jokingly have something that I call the 1% challenge. And that is very simple. Have you ever failed to change anything 1%? You know?
That's true. That's true. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And consider also that companies are obviously spending an enormous amount of money on increasing sales. They have marketing, they have salespeople, they have campaigns, they have sales. I mean, a lot of money is being spent on increasing sales. Likewise, companies spend a lot of resource on controlling costs. They have professional purchasers, they have software tools, they have all different processes and so forth. And pricing is often just an afterthought. And there's actually statistics out there that an average company spend, and again, actually an average SaaS company spend about 6 hours, 6 man-hours on pricing, right? During the lifetime of the company.
Oh, that's very, very less.
That is exactly. And the result, of course, is that they leave a lot of money on the table. So, but I said there's 3 mistakes, apart from this very first one, which is not understanding the importance of price. The first mistake that companies do is to try to look at a competitor and set the same price. And that does not work. And it does not work because as a company, you don't know what competition is charging. Even if your competitors have pricing online, you don't know what specials they're making, what deals they're making, what incentives or kickbacks they have to customers. You don't know whether the prices on their website change 8 times a day. You don't know if the website is geotagged, so depending on your location, you will see different prices. You don't know if you click out of the website and come back, you will see a different price. So again, even if prices are in public, you don't know what your competitor is set their prices. And if your competitors' pricing are not in the public, there's no way you're going to find out. You can talk to customers or joint customers. They're not going to tell you. They're going to tell you stories. They're going to tell you stories to make you lower your price. Maybe sometimes you can find an incomplete and old price list, but again, you still don't know what deals they're making and so forth. So saying that, and some CEOs that I talk to, they say, oh, we price to market, which is again one of these, they have no idea what the market is paying. It's just guesswork, right? And lo and behold, if you can actually manage to find your competitors' prices and you believe in them, that is often the very first step into the commoditization death spiral. Because the next thing that happens is that you start to using the same marketing message as the competitor. You start to have the same feature function set as the competitors. And suddenly you are a commodity. And the pricing power you may have from the differentiators of your company are gone. And then if you're a commodity, the lowest price wins, leading to even fewer resources for marketing, for product development, and so forth. So you have to lower your price even more, and so forth. So, and eventually you know, the company or the product line or the product or the services are on life support or dead, right? So the second mistake is to use cost plus. Knowing the cost of your product or service is important, but it should not be the basis for pricing. And different industries have sort of industry rules of thumb on what that uplift should be. You know, old school manufacturing industries typically look at cost, and then they increase it with 35%, and that's their price, or maybe 50%. Retailers typically double their cost. Some high-tech industries take their cost ×5 or ×10. And the costs have nothing to do with the value you deliver, right? And there's another thing that people don't think about when you look at cost-based pricing, and that is that, and do another thought experiment here. Let's say that you have a product where the cost is $50, and you double that, so your margin is 100%, right? That means that you have you make a $50 profits. Now, let's say that you manage to lower the cost to $40, means that your price is going to be 80. And what you have done here is that your margin is still 100%, but you're making $40 and not $50. So you just shot yourself in the foot.
Yes.
You know, and the third mistake I've already touched upon, and that is just guesswork. You know, which is where market price and stuff like that comes in. And I had a conversation with the CEO of a SaaS company a few years back, and he said, well, he said, I decided that the price should be $165 per user per month. And then he continued saying that, but I don't know, maybe it should have been 99 per month. Maybe it should have been 250 a month. You know, just 165 felt right. You know, and last time I checked the company's website, it hasn't been updated in several years, and you can still see that it's a very, very small company, right?
Mm.
So anyway, so those are the really the four main mistakes companies do.
I definitely have seen them, even as a strategy consultant myself. I've definitely seen the guesswork that goes into the pricing. I have also, a lot of them, they kind of use cookie cutter solutions that they would have read in a textbook or an online article, and then just kind of stuffed it into their pricing. So I have definitely seen the themes that you've talked about. Most of my audience, they're solopreneurs, they're online coaches, you know, they're looking to price themselves, and they're kind of a one-man show. And one of the things that me included, in this group, we face, the problems that we face is the pressure of the market to have a particular price point for our services. What are your thoughts on that? Because one time, you know, on one side, I know that you said, you know, the market will have its own guidelines, but at the same time, we don't necessarily have to follow it, but there is a lot of pressure, like customers, our clients expect us to be at the same price range as our competitors. What are your thoughts on that? How do we navigate through that delicate situation?
It is pricing power, and pricing power is a term that was coined by Warren Buffett. And he then continued to explain what he meant with it. And he said, pricing power is the most important criterion for where to invest money, right? And companies with pricing power can increase their pricing without losing sales volume. And if you and what makes a company have pricing power and command higher prices than competition. And I say command because pricing power is something that you earn. It doesn't come automatically. And it comes from being able to differentiate yourself in such a way that you appeal to a portion of the market who is willing to pay higher prices, right? And it is that differentiation and that customer targeting that is so important. Without that, you will be a commodity, right? Now, if you're a solopreneur, you're a very small company, how do you do this? Well, you can of course hire a company like mine, right? But that's a costly exercise for a one-man band. One way of doing it that is not, it's better than guessing, it's better than you know, trying to do any of the what shall I say, the mistakes that I mentioned. But one way of doing it where you can get a hint of where your prices should be is to go out and find 25 potential customers, right? These are not your current customers. They're not your prospects. They are certainly not your friends and family, right? And finding at least 25 of them. And then you describe what you do and put particular emphasis on what you think are the differentiators, right? And then you ask two questions, and the phraseology here is very important. You ask, now when you know what we do and how we are different, what is the price for our service or our product that you feel is just a little so low that you think we are going to overpromise and underdeliver, and because of that, you won't buy it, right? The next question is, and now let's look at the flip side. Consider that we will underpromise and overdeliver. Our benefits are going to be higher than you expect. What is the price that is still just barely too expensive, and for that reason you won't buy it, right? Now, then you take the average of those two answers, you know, and suddenly you have the range, not below that and not over that, right? And then of course you set your price towards the high end because it's going to give you the highest revenue. And this is, and if you can't find 25% potential customers, there are bigger problems than pricing, right?
Yes, that is true. That is correct. That makes sense. And I think that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, and if you're if say that you're a lifestyle coach, you know, how do you do this? I mean, you scour your neighbor, your neighborhood Starbucks and other places like that, and you just approach people and say, I'm doing some market research, can I ask you a couple of questions, right? It's a little harder when you do if your business is a business to business, but you know, there are ways. You go on LinkedIn, you can find people and, you know, saying, I just have a couple of questions for you. You can do this. You don't have to do it, you know, face to face. You don't have to do it. You can just ask these questions in a message, you know. So, but the phraseology is very important. You can never ever say, what are you willing to pay? What do you think is the right price? Because people will lie, you know, and they will underrepresent what they're truly willing to pay.
Absolutely. I've definitely made that mistake in the past. I've got to be honest with you. When I was conducting market research during the beginning stages of my business, this was about 3.5 years ago, I asked around, I was releasing a product, my first product. And of course, for those of you out there who you know, heard, I actually had 7 failed product launches. I think it was 6, and my 7th one was finally a success. But for the first one, I remember asking people on my social media page, well, what are you willing to pay for this product? And the responses I got were so heartbreaking for me, because I had spent so much of energy and effort into a product that I thought was worth X amount. And here everybody was, they were saying, oh, X by 10, max
Yeah.
X, and I was like, that's not the worth. And I think it's also important to understand that people don't understand the value of your product before they've used it, so their perception of your product is the price that they're giving, or they're letting you know. So in that way, I really liked how Per said, you've got to phrase your question differently. You've got to phrase your question differently so that you get the answer that you need. And I think that's so good, because all these years I have actually stopped asking that question, because I realized I was never going to get an accurate answer. And now hearing Per, I know that it was just a matter of me rephrasing that and asking it in a different way. So I definitely, appreciate that tip, and it's something that I'm going to use for my business as well. And Per,
let me know how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I mean, I definitely sell a lot of products. So for me, pricing it's been more of a trial and error, I've got to say. I come up with one point, and then, I kind of have different thoughts over time. I fiddle around with it. I know that's probably not healthy as per your definition of how we're supposed to look at pricing, but of course, we're here to learn. I'm here to learn as well. And so, owing to that conversation, I kind of want to ask you one question. So for solopreneurs like me, we have two different ways to go about it. We can either price our services time-based or project-based. Which one is better? Which one?
Always project. Always project.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are your reasons for it? Let me know your thoughts.
Oh, well, there are two reasons. First off, if you do it project-based, your customer will know the cost. They can either mentally put it in their personal budget or their written budget, or they can go to their boss if it's a B2B and say, this is what this project is going to cost. And we are always willing to pay higher prices for the certainty that we know what the cost is going to be. And it also means that you are taking on the risk. And buyers are risk adverse. And in fact, there are studies out there. There's an academic field called behavioral economics. And there are studies out there that shows that our fear of making the wrong purchase decision is 2.25 times higher than our expected benefits, right? So if you can mitigate that fear, means that your chances to get the business are much higher. Now, if you think about things like, what does this mean? Well, it means companies use warranties to mitigate fears. People build brand value, because a brand is a promise of consistency and quality. That's what it is, nothing else. So that's also mitigate fear, right? Fear of buying the wrong thing. And so that's one reason why it should always be project-based. The other reason is that when you start saying sort of time and material, the buyers are going to be reluctant, say, to really, you put a price on your value, on your time, not on your deliveries, right? And it's the deliveries that is important, right? And from a buyer point of view, they don't really want to know that if you sit there and twiddle your thumbs for an hour, and charge them money for that. That's not what they want. They want the outcome, and paying for somebody's time is, you know, not nearly as attractive as paying for the outcomes.
I definitely think that's so true. I mean, consumer behavior is actually one of my favorite subjects when I was doing my MBA. And I remembered, I think I know the academic paper that you were talking about. I vaguely remember reading the exact line that you just said. So I was like, oh, that's amazing. I remember it. It's been a while. But, you know, I think it's really also a mindset switch on the other end, on the buyer's end, when you start charging project-based, because again, they're looking at the outcome. And I think it's also easier, I think, to price yourself higher because they're paying for the results and not
Yes,
your
exactly.
time.
Yes, exactly.
I,
Yeah, and somebody's time is not particularly valuable.
yes, unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah, the outcome of what you're selling is valuable.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's a definite good mindset switch there that immediately happens when you go for a project based service, I mean, pricing for your services. And so when we as solopreneurs, we are thinking of pricing our services, what are some of the things that we need to keep in mind as we are pricing? What are some of the factors that we need to consider? Of course, the cost aside and the basic stuff aside, but what needs to go into our pricing scheme?
Well, it's first off, your and I touched on that already. It's really important to understand the differentiators, because if you can't differentiate yourself in some way that is meaningful to your customers, you are again going to sell a commodity. And a commodity is sold on low price only, right? The other thing to consider, so differentiation means that it may mean that you do something differently. It may be that you just position yourself differently and do the same thing as competition. It may be that you have other marketing messages. It may be that you are better in targeting the customers than your competition. And this is then goes to what I just mentioned in my my little recommendation on how to understand pricing or willingness to pay, really. If you continue over and above those 25 interviews that I mentioned, and you do 75 or thereabouts, right? Then you can start segment this, because you need to know a little bit about these people. If it's a consumer product or service, it could be just basic demographics, whether gender and age and income and stuff like that. If it's B2B, it can be different industries, it can be different company sizes and different buying title of the buyer, right? But then you can start, when you have more data points, you can start segmenting. So you can see that this is a segment that has a higher range than another segment, right? And then suddenly, let's focus on this segment that has a higher range, because that supports higher prices, because that segment value my specific differentiators more than another segment. And I'm not saying that the differences are going to be double the price or 3 times the price, but there's going to be some level that's going to give you you or other solopreneurs, going to give you a little bit more resource to put into more market development, right? To spend a little bit more on Google or Facebook ads, for example, that eventually will elevate the business away from a solopreneur to a company, right? Because eventually you're going to run out of resource doing not only doing the product delivery, but also doing the sales and marketing and all of that stuff for yourself, right? So.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And, talking about, your unique selling points for us as solopreneurs, it could even be your personal brand, because like I always tell you guys, the people who are out there, they're mostly going to pick you for you. They're picking your services for you. So adding your personal brand, it doesn't have to be tangible items like services that you offer in your coaching programs or even in the consultation services that you offer. It can be intangibles as well. And that's exactly what Per was saying. You yourself as a personal brand, if they resonate with you, they might be willing to put it in. The amount of content that you're putting out for them, how much value you can deliver, all of those intangibles are also very important to keep a note and factor into your pricing as well. I think. Did I get it right?
You see my personal brand, right?
Yes, exactly. The price whisperer, that's such a powerful name. I know that you said that you didn't come up with it, but it is a very, very powerful, and it is your personal branding as well. And one of the reasons why I came up with the Marketing Nomad, that's my online pseudonym. It wasn't given to me. I made it up myself, but it is a part of, my entire personal branding that I'm putting out there. And the name has a value there. It's very, very valuable, and people respect that. People have signed me on as a consultant because of the name, and I'm pretty sure that's the same with her as well. So all of that, it's
my personal brand drives my company, and
absolutely,
we're a small company, but it's not only me,
absolutely.
I know, and I do other things. I have a new book out called The Price Whisper, and I have a masterclass on pricing, and I do a lot of these interviews and so forth, and
all that gets added.
Yeah, I think it's so important that you that you're a stand out, in some way, and preferably in a good way,
Yes, that's important. But at the same time, I think one of the ways that you can stand out, frankly, is just to be yourself, to be as authentic as possible when you're showing up, when you're putting your personal branding out there, and to really work to your strengths instead of focusing on what your competition's doing, what they're doing to their strengths. Focus on what's your strength and maximize on that. That's what I truly believe, and that's what's worked for me as well. And it's worked for her as well. So
companies or individuals that focus on competition that never go very far. You should be aware of competition, but you have to run your own race.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. I feel like we've talked so much. It has been so valuable. I have definitely taken a couple of pointers. Like I said, pricing for me at some point was a bit of a trial and error, but now I'm going to be definitely more intentional about it. And I have a few takeaways from this episode. I really hope that you guys do. For if people want to reach out to you, they want to talk to you about pricing, or they want to, get to know your book, your masterclass, where can they find you?
The best way is just do a Google search for The Price Whisperer. You'll find me, you'll find my company.
That's some amazing personal branding right there.
That's right. I have a YouTube channel, and you'll find me everywhere, so articles are written and stuff like that. So
awesome, that's amazing. And that's a very good example of amazing personal branding there. If people can find you on Google search just by your online pseudonym or by your name, trust me guys, you're doing good. Okay,
they can.
That's a side note there for you guys. And Per, thank you so much for coming on my show. It has been an absolute honor and pleasure to meet you and to learn from you as well. Thank you so much.
Well, Prit, it's been a pleasure being here, and I hope this was valuable for you and the audience.
Absolutely. That's why I do what I do. And for those of you
No,
listening all the way up until here, thank you so much. I will catch you in my next episode. Bye-bye.
bye.